The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Today on Aging Horizons, we'll be speaking with Dan McLean, who's a retired attorney and a commissioner for the Access to Justice Commission, all about the Access to Justice Commission and what that means for Montanans. What is civil legal service and what does that mean? And how does the entire court system benefit from having more funding for civil legal service? We're going to ask all of these questions and so many more when we return to Aging Horizons.
I have so many questions about power of attorney.
Well, some powers of attorney are for finances and others are for healthcare decisions.
A power of attorney designates an agent who would make decisions on your behalf.
While making a power of attorney, you have the ability to control your agent's power.
You also have the ability to decide when that POA would take effect.
Wait, am I giving away all my rights?
Power of attorney isn't a license to make any decision for you, just those that you've specified.
Your agent should be somebody that's working in your best interest, but it should also be somebody that you would trust.
What if they try to abuse their power?
Protective measures like third-party accounting, secondary signatures, defined spending and gifting limits can help protect against financial exploitation. An agent's powers can always be limited by a customized power of attorney, and they can be revoked by you or the court if the power of attorney is abused.
So carefully drafted estate planning documents can help ensure that your finances are monitored, but not abused.
If you or someone you know is being exploited, please report to Aging Services Bureau at 844-277-9300 or the Legal Service Developer at 1-800-332-2272. This message sponsored by the DPHHS Aging Service Bureau.
I take care of my wife at home. When I found out training was available, I said, sign me up. It's made a huge difference.
When my husband was injured at work, it was life-altering. The classes taught me that it's okay to grieve, to ask for help, and to better cope as a caregiver.
My dad lives 4 hours away, and the Powerful Tools classes taught me that it's okay to ask for help. I highly recommend them.
To find out about this course for caregivers, go to powerfultoolsforcaregivers.org.
It's amazing the difference a little training can make.
Montanans are independent. We're also responsible, protective, and committed to our families and communities. That's why we've done so well against COVID-19. As we open up, we've got to keep doing what we do best. And it starts with each and every one of us, protecting public health in the 406 for our families, friends, and neighbors. We all have to do our part. Montanans get that. And we've got this.
Welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Katie Lovell, and today we're speaking with Dan McLean, who's a retired attorney and a commissioner for the Access to Justice Commission. Dan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Dan, you and I are both members of the commission, and I think it's such an amazing work that the commission does, and so many amazing people are a part of it. But what is the Access to Justice Commission?
Well, the commission is a group of 18 people appointed by the Montana Supreme Court, Chief Justice, and the court orders, they issue orders to appoint people there, representing a broad range of people, professions, and constituencies. There's lawyers like myself. I represent the State Bar of Montana.
Okay.
People from DPHHS, the Health and Human Services, the court system. There are 2 district judges on the commission. Also, Justice of the Peace. They call that the courts of limited jurisdiction.
Okay.
Tribal government, Native Americans, the tribal courts. Just people that are involved in legal issues, legal matters for justice. Justice is the court system. So.
Sure, and especially low-income Montanans, correct?
Very much. And one of the representatives is she represents organizations that serve low-income individuals.
Sure. What is the goal of the Access to Justice Commission?
Well, there's some core values, the statements of what the commission does. I can read part of it because it's hard to memorize it, but as I said, there's 18 people on the commission named by the Supreme Court. And the purpose is to develop and coordinate, educate people about the justice system and providing access to justice, which is providing ability for people to be represented, to participate in the judicial system when they have legal needs.
Sure. And that can be everything from, helping people get access to forms that they need to file, or figure out even which court that they're supposed to be in, or even finding representation, correct?
Absolutely. It's the goal of the commission, too, overall, is to see that everyone, regardless of their means, regardless of their ability to, and their social status, or their ability to pay for lawyers, that's a big problem in Montana and around the country. So our focus tends to be more on low-income people, underserved people, rural Montanans, Indian reservations, that sort of thing, are critical kind of things that don't have we call those demographic barriers.
Sure.
It's hard to provide access, people equal access to justice. We say justice for all. Well, justice for all who can afford it is easier to say.
Sure.
That's really more the reality, but the goal of the commission is to educate people and to have resources so that more people can have access regardless of their means.
So eliminating as many barriers to justice as possible, and then creating ways to get over those remaining hurdles.
Right, that's right. There's some core values that the things that the commission does. The first one is to provide access, as we've been talking about. The other one is to educate, and also coordinate with other organizations.
Sure.
HHS, the court system first, the courts themselves.
Absolutely.
And the Montana Justice Foundation, which is that's a fundraising group that makes grants to programs that provide legal services,
sure,
like Montana Legal Services. Mm-hmm. There's also, I failed to mention that one of the members on the commission, or really a couple, are the director of Montana Legal Services, which is a statewide law firm basically that provides free or very limited fee kind of program for limited fees for people to get access just on a variety of topics.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And folks that are interested in getting involved in the commission's work or learning more about it, how do they access the commission?
Well, it's easy to get to. There's a website.
Sure.
The website has a lot of information. Just by clicking links, it links to various other parts of it's part of the Supreme Court website. It's the state website, the Supreme Court part of it, and there's links to forms, links to information about the commission, about general legal services available.
Yeah.
People have legal needs. Again, for low-income people especially, get access there. They don't know. That's not. There's about 1 in 5 Montanans qualify for assistance from legal services.
Wow.
Montana Legal Services,
yeah.
MLSA, in shorthand we call it. But they have just programs that can serve people in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's direct representation for family law cases. Landlord-tenant are good examples of that. We'll get into more of that later on in the program today. But there's just to provide access to people that otherwise wouldn't have it.
Yeah, and the meetings are open to the public, right? So folks can come and actually attend the meetings of the commission quarterly.
Yes, they can. We meet quarterly, and committees were also, people could come to those as well. I can't imagine why they would do that.
Yeah.
And right now, during this COVID-19 problem we're having around the country and around the world, it hits as well as Montana. We meet by Zoom.
Sure.
So the practicality of having people actually attend meetings is pretty remote.
Yeah.
But I often have guests at the meetings, people that are there from the general public that can kind of listen. They can't really participate in a way. They can listen and observe what's going on, what we're talking about. We spend a lot of time planning and deciding and doing that. And the committee work in between, there's some
Sure.
key committees that talk about this. The committee I'm on is communications and outreach.
Sure.
So this show is a factor of outreach, so that so more people can learn about commission, and more than the commission, to learn about what we do and what could be available.
Right. Well, Dan, when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about what civil legal aid even means. What does that even mean? So make sure you stay tuned. When we get back, we'll talk about civil legal needs.
"45 years, 2 packs a day." It's like $80,000. I thought I was just hurting myself until I fell asleep in a chair with a cigarette. The whole house went up. I lost it all. I knew smoking was expensive, but I never thought it would cost me everything.
The human heart. Even at its strongest, it's a fragile muscle. Chest and arm pain, shortness of breath, are signs of a heart under attack. But 3 numbers can save a life. Dial 911 at the first sign of a heart attack. Quick response from medical experts can save your life.
I was 45 and it happened to me, a heart attack.
Dialing 911 saved Ryan's life. Now he's here and he's healthy.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. Today we're speaking with Dan McLean, who's a retired attorney and a commissioner on the Access to Justice Commission. Today, Dan, I want to talk a little bit about what civil legal aid means. I think when people hear that term, they might think of like a very small issue, like maybe filing a civil suit against someone, but really it's such a broad range of topics.
It is, Katie. The civil legal aid involves people's everyday lives,
sure.
Issues that come up. People have legal issues that we don't think about as legal issues sometimes. So it might be probate, it might be wills and trusts. It could be, that's my field of law, what I practiced for before I retired. It's also landlord-tenant issues,
sure.
That renters having problems. Some people they're aware of that the people are provided representation, the right to counsel, the right to own a lawyer,
sure.
that the state pays for with the public defender system, but that only applies to criminal law.
Sure.
And civil is the other side, and there's way more cases, way more issues to deal with civil legal aid and civil causes, and so it involves everybody's day-to-day things. We have legal relationships and problems that are going unmet because the courts are crowded, and also just life is complicated, and there's
sure.
a lot of civil legal problems that people have, and they don't have access or don't have resources to deal with that.
I think a big one that people sometimes forget about is family law. All of our family law cases are civil law cases, so all of your parenting plans, your divorces, all of that is civil law.
Yes, it is. That's a big one, and things go along with that. Child custody.
Sure.
A similar thing also is like guardianships, that sort of thing. People need care, and sometimes there's abuse,
sure.
domestic abuse, violence, violence against family members, that sort of thing. That's criminal, and we're not talking about that today. There's a civil side of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
To help prevent those sort of things, programs to deal with where can people go, and get help. Whether it's better sheltered sheltered homes, that sort of thing. People
sure.
do that, help do that kind of stuff. Other civil problems that people have are besides family law. Family law is the largest number of cases that Montana Legal Services
sure.
takes in. They deal with that an awful lot with pro bono lawyers. That means they have a list of people, or they recruit people. The courts actually recruit people, lawyers, to provide free legal services all the time. And in my practice, I always had at least one case for somebody. That's direct representation. Also, volunteer lawyers, which I'm fortunate to be able to do now, much more than I did before, just based on time, but is just volunteer to give legal advice,
Sure.
not representing people directly, but they can call, they set an appointment there and I call them and talk about what their uses are. And they come up, just a broad range of topics that come up. And people, you don't think about that. People who have relatively affluent means, that they're able to do things, they understand what their rights are somewhere. I got involved with legal services years ago, used to be on the board there, and I was president of the board. What struck me and how I was recruited to that, I went to a program and realized that, as I mentioned earlier, about 1 in 5 Montanans face legal problems there. And at the time, this started with the War on Poverty back in the 60s, the Civil Rights Act, those sort of things. At that time, there were like 39 or 40 legal services lawyers doing direct representation. Now there's about 13 or 14, and the population that needs services, that qualify for services now, is amazing.
Growing exponentially.
About 194,000 people in Montana.
In Montana alone.
In Montana alone, 194,000 people. Think about that. If we have 1 million people.
Yeah. And Dan, we talk about how civil legal service, 194,000 people in Montana is huge, but civil legal service doesn't just help those 194,000 people. It helps so many other parts of the criminal justice system as well.
Well, but they don't do any criminal law. They do just civil law kind of stuff. The civil things they do, yes, they. Well, for instance, like the advice clinic that we have, that Legal Services does with volunteer lawyers. People might not qualify for direct representation, and Legal Services can't possibly take in the number of cases that what the people have needs for. So it's not possible.
Right.
They do a lot through technology, but by having remote access to the court or hearings and that sort of thing. But coordinating, they spend a lot of effort and time with people just coordinating, volunteer lawyers like myself and others, who lawyers provide a lot of free services and advice kind of things free of charge, just because people need help to know they have a problem, they don't know even what the problem is.
Sure. They
call for some help and they get into somebody with a legal issue, a question comes up, and so that's what Legal Services provides, a whole lot of resources that way to people to get help from somebody. Sometimes they just need a hand up, just advice to. Then they do things, they file things on their own. There's also people who qualify direct aid somewhere. They have assistance from a lawyer who represents them in a case, but there's a lot of people who can't afford lawyers, and they go to the courts, and it just burdens the court system.
Absolutely.
And they don't know rules, how to operate. The courts are much more lax about procedures for people with self-help kind of things. We call that pro se, and lawyers like Latin words.
Yes, absolutely.
But pro se is one of those things, they're self-help sort of deals. People that do those, it just weighs down the court system somewhere. Sure. It slows down justice for everyone.
Absolutely.
So the civil legal aid in any form it takes really helps all people that have and need access to the courts to take care of their legal problems.
And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, how it impacts the entire system, and we're also going to talk about what's next. So make sure you stay tuned to Aging Horizons.
No one likes to have to ask for help. It's a courageous act.
Sarah Solomon, Energy Share Coordinator.
Our clients work hard, sometimes at 2 or even 3 jobs, but still struggle to keep the heat on. They're doing everything they can. They're proud and they don't give up. I feel inspired and honored to work together with these Montana families.
To donate, call 888-779-7589 or go to EnergyShareMT.com. Energy Share, you can help your neighbor stay warm.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. Today we're speaking with Dan McLean, who's a retired attorney and a commissioner for the Access to Justice Commission, and we're talking all about civil legal aid. Dan, one of the last things that you said before we went to commercial was how important civil legal aid is for not just low-income Montanans, but for the court system as a whole. And there are so many additional benefits to having a better working court system. What are some of the things that Access to Justice really improves?
Well, it improves efficiency of the courts.
Sure.
As I mentioned, a lot of self-help sort of things really can bog it down, and the sheer number of cases bog it down. So civil legal aid helps people navigate the system a lot, so it helps streamline what's available, streamline the court system itself, so it works better for all Montanans.
Sure. Veterans
are particularly another group that is helped by that to rebuild their lives after getting out of the service. People with landlord-tenant issues, it's amazing. Not that landlords are bad people necessarily, but they don't know even what they're supposed to be doing. So
Sure.
educating them. The parents and children, they not just custody things, but domestic violence issues are a huge thing. And right now, 30% of cases that come into legal services, Montana Legal Services, involve the COVID-19 issues.
Wow.
Some of that's housing. And so how it makes it works better is people, when they know their rights, they get help with doing the things, and it actually provides an economic benefit. It's hard to count that, but there's like, $1.7 million, something like that, the Montana economy benefits from, because people they're able to stay in their homes, they avoid foreclosure, they collect past due child support. Issues like that have been very important to do.
Veterans benefits, and then benefits for people who have disabilities, all of those are so important.
Social Security is another one. Sometimes the system people are confused by it. Healthcare. I mean, try to deal with a Medicare statement or an explanation of benefits.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer who actually has part of my specialty was there. I get those things now, and I'm going, now that I receive Social Security, I'm going, wait. This is and people who are not educated, that aren't versed into things like that, it's very intimidating, and people are afraid of interaction with our government, which is a shame. So these things help. It helps the court system, but it helps just daily life for just a broad number of people.
Yeah. So Dan, what's next for the Access to Justice Commission? What's on the horizon for us?
Well. We do a lot of planning. We're working on a variety of things. I said we have key committees that get together. Some is also sort of education and public things. This is part of it. This show is part of it. But other ones, the committee work is important. Besides the quarterly meetings, we have, our committees are meeting now once a month for a while, because we need to address, we meet a lot, we talk a lot about what to do. So what's next? The biggest thing that's next we're working on, I do want to mention too, we have a thing called E-Ramp program that serves rural Montanans. It provides for alternative dispute resolution, mediation, arbitration, that sort of thing, but most to settle things. Most cases Montana Legal Services take in are resolved outside of court. And that's important. That helps improve the system a whole lot.
Absolutely.
It gives people resolving their problems to help them resolve their problems, empowering them to do what they need to do. One of the biggest things going on right now, though, next is I forget the title of the act. The act was first introduced in 2019 legislature, will be done again now. It's the Montana Civil Justice Improvement Act.
Right.
And that's an important thing to think about. It's what it's going to ask for if the legislature adopts it. And what we're working on there is the information to two legislators. In the session, we'll have a session next year, 21, we'll have a legislative session. to educate them about the system. And this Civil Justice Improvements Act provides a fund. It doesn't raise taxes. The fund will be paid for by increasing these filing fees for most civil cases.
Sure.
Again, we're not talking about criminal law, we're talking about civil cases in the judicial system. Fees for filing complaints, petitions, that sort of thing have been so outdated for a long time. Family law cases have been increased, so those are already paying their fair share. They're paying a certain higher filing fee in most cases. Now, other cases, what this bill proposes is to increase the filing fees, and the increased amount will be dedicated to a special fund. So the legislature will appropriate the funds, but they don't collect them. So it's not collected through taxes, it's collected by filing fees in the court system. And so a certain amounts, a share of those filing fees, the increased part from what they were before, will go into a special fund. And then there'll be grants made from that fund to organizations that provide legal services, that provide education, that provide help. Like that's one of the goals of the Access to Justice Commission, is to educate and coordinate and help people use and get justice through the judicial system.
And that additional money could fund up to 40% more civil legal aid in this state. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the studies. The other thing the commission does, we study the problems, the surveys of what that's been going on for years. Justice Beth Baker, she's the chair of the commission, and she's been involved with this for a long time before. This started in 2012. The commission was started in 2012, but before that, Justice Baker and retired deceased Chief Justice Carla Gray were always devoted to access to justice issues for people. So that's where next this bill is something that's going to be difficult to explain and do, because it looks like it's more and more lawyers getting involved. People don't like lawyers. Yeah. Although lawyers provide a lot of services free of charge, but the impression is not so. And so that's where educating the legislature about that. The other thing that's important in this bill is that it does not affect, it prohibits the funds being used to file lawsuits against the government, against the state or federal government, except to enforce their rights, like getting payments they're entitled to. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, those sort of things. They can take action there, but you can't sue the government for lawsuits, I guess.
Right. And that website will be kept updated with all those infographics. And Dan, just thank you so much for being here today and talking through this difficult topic with all of us. And thank you guys for staying tuned, and make sure you stay tuned to Aging Horizons.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.